Hello everyone and welcome once again to another lesson in Wizardry. Today, in Lesson 5, we'll be covering some of the spells we got from Rashaad, some information about our new friends, and other info we obtained from the Shimmering Sands and Mamoon. We of course start with spells as per usual, and I would like everyone to keep in mind, due to the recording methods, when I draw the runes, they are reflections of how you're supposed to draw the rune. So keeping that in mind, try to draw the rune when you try it in the correct shape, in the correct direction, I should say. There isn't really much I can do. I can try to flip it for this one, but I'm warning you ahead of time that that might not be possible. Anyway, oh, I noticed I accidentally zoomed in a little too much, so you couldn't see the whole page, but whatever. We start, of course, with Puppet String. Make stones and statues move like marionettes. This spell allows you to manipulate any object as if it were a puppet on a string. From moving boulders out of your way, to having dolls pull distant levers, its uses are manifold. Note that Puppet String may only be used to control inanimate objects. Any attempt to use the spell to dictate the actions of another living being is doomed to fail, and is unwizardly beside. Indeed, I can't imagine someone using a spell like this to do something so monstrous. But I digress. For now, I'm going to show you how to draw the rune. Alright, now I want to make a quick contradiction to what I said previously. I actually started recording these videos in a new way because it just occurred to me I could use OBS to record these instead of what I was using, which was Windows Movie Maker, which reflects it. I mean, technically so does OBS, but I have a function that allows me to flip the view of things. So you will see exactly what it looks like when you draw it, in theory. In theory. But I digress. Let's start with drawing the rune. Now for this one we're going to draw an upside down V, or if you want to call it a mountain, that works too. And then we draw some stairs through the shape. So one more time. We start with the V, then like roughly about here, down, cross, down. One more time. Draw the mountain, and the stair, and quickly. Alright, now we move on to our next spell. And the next spell we're covering is Secret Ingredient. Concoct a range of delicious delicacies. Magically prepared food has a certain blissful flavor with which dishes cooked in ordinary ovens simply cannot compete. However, it has been a belief among the non-magical that those who regularly eat food prepared in this way will eventually forfeit their souls. Though this suggestion is almost certainly baseless, the sages agree that it is better to use this spell in moderation. Now let me show you how to draw this rune, even though you probably shouldn't be using this too much. Alright, now we draw Secret Ingredient. This one's pretty easy. You basically draw the pot, as we'll call it, and then you write a G inside the pot. So one more time. Draw the pot, and G goes in. And now quickly. Very easy rune. But now we move on to our next one. Alright, and our next is Magic Lamp. Bring light even to the darkest nook. This spell brings a warm glow to the dingiest dungeon crevice, though it burns only for a short time. The magic lamp shines as brightly as the sun itself. Just be sure not to fall into the same trap that many foolish wizards before you. The lamp does not overcome the darkness, and it does not protect you from it. The darkness remains. It is something to be feared. Who wrote this entry? Xehanort from Kingdom Hearts? Honestly. But I digress. Allow me to show you how to draw this simple rune. Alright, now we are going to be drawing, of course, as I mentioned, Magic Lamp. The best way I guess I can describe this is you're going to draw a U shape near the upper area of where you're casting your spell, and then under it you draw a triangle. Try to imagine an old-time lantern, where it's like a fuse is at the bottom, and the U is fire. I mean, it doesn't really look like fire, the symbol, but that's the basic shape we're going to try and go for, because it does kind of look like a Bunsen burner or a fuse, really. So I'm going to try that one more time. So we draw the U, or the flame, and the triangle, or the actual fuse. One more time. Slowly. U, triangle. And now fast. Alright. And now that that's done, we move on to, I believe this is the last one in our video for the current moment. Let me check my notes really quick. Don't mind me. Ah, yes. This is indeed the last one. And our last spell to cover is Pulse. Unleash a wave of pure energy upon your enemies. This spell allows the caster to unleash a powerful shockwave that will flatten anything in its path. Though a weapon first and foremost, Pulse is surprisingly versatile, and can be used to give distant objects a nudge, for any number of purposes besides. Note that it is best to calm one's mind before casting this spell. An excess of anger produces an unpleasant recoil effect. I'd imagine roughly around what it's like to shoot a shotgun if you're not preparing for it. But I digress. Allow me to show you how to cast Pulse. Okay, now Pulse is actually very easy to draw. It's basically just W, and in the center of that W you draw V. And there, you've drawn Pulse. One more time, slowly. W, V. Now, why it's drawn specifically like this, I couldn't tell you. But, that's how it's done. And now quickly. Alright, and that does it for spells for this lesson. We move on for some information about the world around us, starting with what nightmares are. And I'll see you in just a moment. Teachings for Aspiring Wizards, number 10. Nightmares. The worst dreams you've ever had. As briefly mentioned in the introduction to the locket, people become broken-hearted when the virtues that make up their heart are lost or stolen. While most broken-hearted people can return to normal by restoring the virtue that's missing from their hearts, some can be possessed by nightmares, a predicament that's a rather difficult one to resolve. Nightmares are mysterious presence that consists entirely of evil. They seep into the cracks that form broken hearts, further disrupting their balance. Those who are possessed by nightmares lose sight of themselves completely and become totally different people. Since nightmares do not generally alter a person's appearance, however, their friends and family may not even realize that the victim's been possessed. To return the victims of possession to their old selves, one must first drive away the nightmare. Only then can the missing virtue be restored to their hearts. And that covers nightmares. Now we move on to Esther's familiar. Since we just got a new party member with a brand new familiar, I thought it would be important to introduce that familiar in, well, the entry. So I will meet you back in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Drongo. Creatures noted for their highly single decorative plume that adorns their head. Though they do not enjoy fighting, they are capable of unleashing powerful electrical attacks when enraged. They are resistant to water, and born under the moon sign. It is unknown where you could find such creatures, but it is known that they drop yogurt and soft scoop ice cream, rather. They can know Healing Tear, Thunderspark, Sea Sense, and more. Now, the Drongo can become the Strongo. Caring creatures who are often seen tending to their companions' wounds. Like the previous forms, still resistant to water, but this one is born under the sun sign. These can be found in the sea north of the Winter Isles. They drop snow radishes, cold stones. They can know Thunderspark, Healthy Glow, Bubble Bath, and more. The next form is the Florongo. Boasting the avian equivalent of a goatee beard and bushy eyebrows, Florongo could be mistaken for wizards when banishing enemies with the flash of the tip of their staff. Now, Florongos are resistant to light, but weak to fire. They are born under the sun sign, but it is unknown where they could be found or what they would drop. They can know Twinkle Twinkle, Short Circuit, Rise and Shine, and more. And lastly, we have the Electrongo. This placid creature has a looping gait that is utterly at odds with the fierce power of the lightning bolts it fires at enemies. It is resistant to storms, but weak to water. It is born under the star sign. It is unknown where you could find them and unknown what they might drop. But they know Thunderbolt, Water Bomb, Water Spout, and more. But that covers the Drongo pretty thoroughly. Next, we will cover the Summerlands and a bit more info about them. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Summerlands South. Before we get into the reading, I would like to just point out, if we zoom in a little bit, here is the Shimmering Sands and all the areas we can currently get to. You'll notice the desert doesn't really have that many spots you can draw from, with most of them being on plateaus that we can't reach. By the way, remember I mentioned the genie steps? The plateau I just zoomed in on, and the plateau down here, are the genie steps. We cannot reach them now, but at some point, maybe we will be. Huh. Wonder what that blue patch is right there. Huh. Must be like a cave or something. I suppose that makes sense. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. There's only 3 points you can draw from on the entire desert, so that's why it seems like there's just not a lot that you can draw from it. But I digress. Now that we've addressed that, let's get some reading in the way. The Summerlands South. The southern part of the Summerlands is dominated by a large sandy desert, at the center of which lies the grand and mysterious city of Mamoon, with the fishing village of Castaway Cove to the south, and the Jabal al-Dukhan volcano, nicknamed Old Smoky by locals. To the west, this area has something to pique the interest of any traveler. And we're going to go over the various points in here. I want to do them in order. I think the Temple of Trials is number 1, but I need my Nausicaan numbers, because those are the things I'm not too keen. Ah, yes, that is one. Alright, then they are listed in order, it seems, which makes my life a lot easier. We start with the Temple of Trials. This glorious temple was erected by the ancient sages as a place for wizards to develop their skills. Only those who pass the rigorous tests held within can realistically aspire to one day become sages. Next we have Mamoon, a desert oasis ruled by a bovine queen, famous for its flavorsome babanas and milk fountains. The city invites visitors to sate their hunger and slake their thirst. Next we have the Shipwreck Shore, which you can actually see right over there. And it has a decent chunk of spots to draw materials from. Known as the Ship's Graveyard, the treacherous sea around the Shipwreck Shore is littered with broken hulls and snapped masts. Most of the wretched vessels here are slowly sinking into the seabed, their names long since forgotten. Then we have the Vault of Tears, also seeable in that little section right there. Whoops, passed it. The ruins of a formerly prosperous city. Its labyrinthine stone passageways are still a sight to behold. And Castaway Cove, an adorable fishing village known as the Jewel of the Southern Seas. Castaway Cove is famous for being the birthplace of the Flying Boat, truly a unique fishing vessel. And last on our list we have Jabal al-Dukhan, or Old Smoky. The mighty volcano constantly bubbling with red-hot lava and utterly devoid of plant life. At certain points in history, Old Smoky has been prevented from erupting via magical placement of a vast boulder in its crater. Interesting thing to note, if you actually do go to Old Smoky, if memory serves me correctly, you can see some, dead, burnt-out trees, which I think is interesting because it implies that near Old Smoky there used to be plant life, but I guess an eruption happened at some point and wiped them clear out and they're not growing back. But let us turn the page and get to Mamoon. Here we are. Mamoon, a desert oasis that grows more prosperous by the day. Prosperous, rather. There are no more impressive sight than the gleaming towers of Mamoon rising out of the endless desert. Within its walls, bountiful babana trees and 2 creamy milk fountains await weary travelers. First-time visitors to Mamoon are struck by 2 things: the city's general magnificence and its residents' commitment to equality. Indeed, Mamoon is one of the only states in the world to have been ruled over by a long succession of female sovereigns. That it is so prosperous can be no coincidence. Let's go down to our essential information. City, Mamoon. The climate is hot and arid. The local delicacies are babanas and creamy milk, and once we help that guy at his stall, it will also be the tikka mahala, but that's neither here nor there. Character, resilient, possibly due to the heat. The festivals that take place here are the Babana Harvest, and the local sport is Oasis Relay. And my battery is dying, and I should solve that issue before we have a problem. There. And their ruler over here is the Khalifa of Mamoon. Quite attractive, if I do say so myself. At least by the picture. And now we have the history of Mamoon. Mamoon was just a small desert oasis when a visiting sage decided to erect 2 milk fountains in its midst, in the area now occupied by the city's central square. The creamy milk provided by the fountain allows for the selective cultivation of plants and the eventual development of the babana, a fruit now recognized as one of the 3 great foods of the world. Mamoon therefore owes its current prosperity and to the generosity of one sage, and the hard work of the countless babana farmers. I'd imagine that sage was probably Rashaad. It doesn't mention him by name, but considering that he's living in Mamoon now, it makes it seem kind of obvious, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, we have some recommended delicacies when you stop at Mamoon. Made using the local babanas, these delectable desserts can only be sampled within the walls of Mamoon. The babana split and the chocolate babana. Local customs. Traditional music. The inhabitants of Mamoon are renowned for their love of music and dancing. The locals may well invite you to sing a song with them. Be sure to accept, as it is one of the best ways to get to know people of this unique city-state. A popular meeting place. The Fountains of Milk, rather. Mamoon Central Square plays host to the legendary milk fountains that are the source of the city's prosperity. The milk that flows therefrom is extremely creamy and absolutely delicious. Not just a refreshing drink in its own right, but it's also a key ingredient to many tasty dishes. Alright, and we have one more page before we move on to the story that we need to cover, because this one just happened to pop up. I suppose I could show you through flipping, just a quick glance. Some pages did happen to pop up, aside from what we had there about Mamoon and the South Summerlands. We're going to start with Teachings for Aspiring Wizards number 15, Stone Culture. The Origins of Stone Culture. Most traveling wizards will already be familiar with the waystones that lie scattered around the kingdoms of the world. Waystones are a great treasure, bequeathed to us by the ancients, and they are capable of recording our thoughts and memories as well as restoring body and mind. Indeed, they are an invaluable part of any wizard's journey. The dawning of the Age of Sages was marked by the widespread use of stones in magic, to the extent that it is sometimes called the Sagely Stone Age. Wizards of the period worked to uncover the mysteries of stones, and used stone statues and tablets to store knowledge. Such was the importance of stones that special spells were developed in order to make their transportation easier, and a truly wondrous stone-based civilization emerged. Early stone tablets, called memory stones, could store thoughts and memories, while later, more advanced designs were able to move and talk of their own volition. These stones, some which still exist to this day, are unrivaled in their magical knowledge, but they are also deeply susceptible to flattery, and will gladly share their wisdom to any wizard who knows how to ask. Be sure to take every opportunity to learn from such stones. And we have a picture of the Telling Stone, which is of course one of them, which means we already have one traveling with us. Now, we have City Guardians. Most of the great cities of history were built from stone. Not only did this provide them with sturdy walls, but it also conferred magical protection upon them. Indeed, there are many cities, towers, caves, and other locations that benefit from such protection. These locations are said to be guarded by living stones. Living stones continue to guard buildings long after humans have stopped using them, meaning that the world is full of melancholy living stones stoically guarding long-abandoned cities. I don't know about you, but this really makes me sad, imagining living stones that no longer have people to protect, just sitting where there once was life, not able to move or talk, just sitting there, all alone. But anyway, now we move on to the story we've got from Horace, and I'll see you in just a moment when we get to that. The first tale, The Cowardly Prince and the Lion. The Cowardly Prince. In a certain country, there lived a prince named Tamalo, who was sharp of mind but weak of spirit. His father was a brave king, strong, wise, and loved by all his subjects. But the noble example he set served only to weaken Tamalo's spirit. On one occasion, his father told him thus, "Soon, my boy, it shall be time for me to retire, upon which thou shalt become king." While the announcement delighted the prince, it also filled him with a terrible dread, for he did not have the spirit required to ascend to the throne. In his vexation, he wandered from the castle, lost in thought, whereupon he encountered a fearsome lion. The prince tried to flee, but the lion caught him easily in his paw, and lifted him to his gaping mouth and swallowed him whole. At first, the prince thought he was doomed, but at length he began to reconsider his position. "At least I no longer have to become king," thought the prince. After taking a deep breath, he said to the lion, "Mighty lion, I am the prince of this country, and the day after tomorrow I was due to become its king. Since thou hast now swallowed me, however, thou must needs become king instead." "King, eh?" replied the lion. "I shan't complain about that." Thereupon, the prince led the lion back to the palace. The courtiers were shocked to see the lion enter the palace, but the prince pleaded with them from inside his stomach, and the lion was accepted as king. The lion proved to have quite an aptitude for royal duties. Whensoever there was a dispute in his kingdom, the lion would simply growl at the quarrelers. "Stop complaining, or I shall eat you alive!" Whenever a bridge was swept away by a flood, the lion would simply use his paws to rip down a tree and lay it across the river. Regarding taxation and legal matters, the lion was utterly ignorant. But, whensoever such a problem arose, Prince Tamalo would speak to him from inside his stomach and provide him with a sound solution. Two dragons. After some time, news reached the king that two dragons were ravaging the eastern and western edges of his kingdom. The people were terrified and looked to their king to deliver them from this terrible evil, upon which the king announced that he should go smite the dragon himself. But even the fearsome lion stood no chance defeating two such terrible dragons. "My dear stomach dweller," said he then, "what in the wide world should I do now?" Prince Tamalo considered the dragon's question, and at length provided him with a suitable scheme. The lion headed east, to the part of his kingdom that was being ravaged by the larger dragon, and he roared in its ugly face. "Dragon, I shall soon slay thee! I fear not, for no matter how large thou art, thou shalt never devour me!" "Oh-ho!" scoffed the dragon. "We shall see about that!" Upon which he ate the lion whole. From inside the dragon's stomach, the dragon said, "Dragon, thou art now king of this land. It is therefore thy royal duty to defeat the dragon ravaging the western part of the kingdom." At first, the dragon paid him no heed, but when the dragon witnessed the humans around him bowing down in deference, as Prince Tamalo had requested they do beforehand, he decided to do his royal duty, whereupon he went to the western mountains and slew the other dragon. Once the other dragon had been slain, the lion commenced scratching the insides of the dragon's stomach. "Ow! It hurts! It hurts!" cried the dragon, rolling around on the floor in agony. "Have mercy, I beseech thee!" To which the lion said, "If thou wouldst not feel this pain, thou must promise never again hurt the people of this kingdom." "Oh, very well, I promise!" cried the dragon in reply. But the dragon was a cunning beast, and Prince Tamalo knew that he would break his promise the moment the lion was out of his stomach. Therefore, he had the lion take out a babbling berry that he told him to bring with him and place inside the dragon. This berry was known to make noises that sounded like someone muttering to himself. With the babbling berry in his stomach, the dragon shan't notice when the lion escapes, thought Prince Tamalo. Later that night, when the dragon was sleeping, the lion crept out of his gaping mouth and set off back to the palace. The dragon left the king and his subjects alone evermore. A new king. The kingdom had been at peace for 10 years when the lion said to Prince Tamalo, "Stomach dweller, it is time thou camest hence from in there. I would have thee take my place on the throne." Prince Tamalo was shocked and replied in a quivering tone, "I fear that I do not have the spirit to become king." "By thy judgments over the past 10 years have invariably been wise," said the lion. That is as it may be. But I am a coward," replied Prince Tamalo. "It was only because..." Oh wait, is that... Yes, it was Prince Tamalo. I apologize. "It was only because I was protected by a great strong lion that I could act so decisively." Yet the lion paid no heed. With an almighty sneeze, he ejected Prince Tamalo from his stomach. It had been 10 years since Prince Tamalo had seen the wide world outside, and he could not believe his eyes. The lion's mane was now full of white, and his face had been covered in wrinkles. Shut up inside the lion's stomach, Prince Tamalo had been quite unaware of any of this. "As thou can see with thine eyes," said the lion, "I have grown old. 10 years hast thou resided in my stomach, and yet not once did thou scratch me or cause me pain, as I myself did to that dragon, though thou couldst done that at any time. The courtiers and subjects of this kingdom did not accept me because I am strong. They accepted me because I have given them my all, by which I mean thou hast given them thine. Thou art the true king of this country. Thou lackest not the spirit, I assure thee." In like manner, everyone at the palace beseeched Prince Tamalo to become their king. "Prince Tamalo, everyone is humbly grateful for everything thou hast done. Our country needeth..." Oh wait, I thought that was the lion. That could just be someone in the crowd. Oh well. "Our country needeth just such a king as thee." Upon hearing these words, Prince Tamalo felt his courage swell up within him. As king, Tamalo gave still more of himself to his country, and despite the fact the lion had retired, he continued to live alongside the king in the palace. Though many countries are ruled by animals these days, in ancient times all kings were human. Indeed, the magnificent lion about whom you have just read was the first ever animal to be acknowledged as king, and the world has never been the same since. And that does it for our lessons. Now, in the actual Let's Play, Horace is going to give us a question which we will need to answer based on this story. Though I will not spoil the question or the answer, I will tell you a hint that will help you along. Keep in mind the 4 characters of this story: Prince Tamalo, the lion, the dragon of the east, and the dragon of the west. Now, if memory serves me from reading this just now, I believe the dragon of the west was smaller than the dragon of the east. This might be relevant to the question. Keep all of these things in mind. And I will see you all in the very next lesson.